when a country girl becomes a famous heroine and was dubbed a great actor. At a hospital, there is a shortage of beds and personnel here. Make one emergency case patient was left by the aisle. But when the doctor came to see the symptoms, she immediately recognized that this patient was Reverend, former legendary star, those who were praised as great heroines. 1 year later, Vani, even though you're a young journalist, journalism degree, honors, rank 1, but she was overlooked by her father. Seen by the father, pressure her to resign to marriage. Chief, he often assigned her to simple tasks, never let her do a big news story, which one day the chief assigned let Vani make news for a year-long comatose underdog star. This is the last news before she had to resign to marriage. She is upset with friends that this is the last chance to prove himself to me. But she made a little news, and also working with Anthony, indie cameraman. Instead, he took pictures of the demonstrators to make up the news of the railway protest. Instead, he filmed the shit kid by the railroad. Cut the scene to Savitri's house. When Jameen 9 came out to see the reporter, he was asked the same question, when will Savitri recover? But he didn't answer and gave no information. On this day, he came out to meet the media in order to counter the news that was written unethically that Savitri was neglected. Jane Discipline told reporters that throughout a year Savitri lay comatose. He's trying to find a cure for her. Dedicated to doing everything for her, has run out of money and millions. What he told the reporter wasn't interesting, couldn't take to write news. But suddenly, Wani turned to see an uncle. He put flowers in front of the house and then went back quietly. She followed that uncle to the store until he found out that he was a photographer that respects very much. Uncle's name is Keswa. Yesterday asked the uncle to tell about Savitri in order to write a story. Ket should immediately refuse because for him, the Reverend is a great heroine, too much to write to send. So Vani pledged that she would reach the core of the story and then write it out intently. When she says that, Aizawa also told me that in the past he was hired to take pictures. At the time, the set was in big trouble. In the emotional shooting, the superintendent wants the heroine convey love through the left eye and convey sadness through the right eye. That is, the heroine must be in tears on one side. It also has to flow at a given time. Of course, this scene requires artificial tears, but the team pushed a broken artificial tear bottle. The director is very upset, even though the set is all set, but the director still gave up the pile. Suddenly, Savitri asked to try filming first. The director is sure she never can. He said it was a waste of time. Savitri asked only one opportunity. The director began to lose emotion. He said that if one take and not, Savitri must apologize to everyone on set. She immediately took the challenge. She also asked, "How many tears do you want?" The director thought she was joking, so he replied that he only took 2 drops. Do not lack, absolutely prohibited. When the shooting began, she did what the director wanted. Her tears flowed on one left and flow exactly at a given time, amazing everyone in their abilities and make the director respectable. And at that time, he took a picture of the moment. Cut the scene back in the present. Keisawa said that on the day that Savitri fell ill, it's the day she wrote him a letter. She wrote to congratulate her on her granddaughter, and she's sorry she hasn't visited yet because of important business, meaning having to take her son to find Chan. Cut the scene to the news agency. When the chief finds out about the last letter, he also looks very interested. He wants to know who Shanka is and why would Savitri go to Chanka. According to preliminary query, no one was found named Shanka, which makes the boss even more interested. He thinks Shanka's mysterious identity may be keep the secret of Reverend. But instead of the chief letting Vani continue, he instead assigned a skilled reporter. Vani is very sang and upset. That was overlooked time and again. But after Anthony spoke encouraging, she's fighting to keep making this news. She snuck into the villa and met Savitri's son. My name is Demo. When she asked if she knew Shanka, demonstrated that he did not know. Shortly thereafter, Savitri's mother came to visit. Demo asking Grandma to talk to Mom because the doctor said that Savitri may still hear. Speaking often can revive. Knowing that, Grandma told her about her childhood. Years ago, after her husband died, Savitri's mother also came to ask to live with her sister. At first, the brother-in-law was dissatisfied. That must bear the additional burden. His name is Dari. But since Savitri's aunt couldn't have children herself, she therefore reasoned that Savitri would help fill the missing. So the Dari agreed to let 2 mothers and children stay. Amitri, in childhood, she was a bright, cute girl. She's an orphan. It made her suspicious what it feels like to be with your father, and want to know what my father looks like. When Mom said that he had a mustache like a king, Savitri then appointed the statue at the temple as his father, because there is a mustache like my mother said. And Savitri often came to talk to the statue and act like the statue is really Dad. After that, the Dari sent them to study, but she's very naughty. Savitri has a close friend. Her name is Sushi Yura. The two often traveled to play fun together. But then one day, Suva couldn't come and play because she has to learn to dance. Both aspects therefore harassed teaching until made the teacher head. Meanwhile, a friend of the Dari came and told me that these days parents often send their daughters to dance lessons because can make good money. When the Dari knew that, then hurried to take Savitri to apply to study. But Savitri, who was sent by the teacher, danced and mocked and fled because she doesn't want to be forced to study. That night, the Dari outraged the stubbornness of Savitri. The aunt's side said, "What good can I do? It must come from the heart, baby." The Dari immediately replied, "Savitri's father was a singer. Artist is probably in her blood." When Savitri heard that, she changed her mind, wanting to learn to dance, because I want to be an artist like my father. But the teacher did not accept as a disciple, because I think that stubborn children like Savitri probably not seriously studying. Despite being rejected by the dance teacher, but Savitri hasn't given up yet. She secretly watched the teaching and then practiced dancing as she remembered, until one day she got a chance to show her ability. When the villagers asked who taught, "Why are you dancing so well?" she pointed towards the dance teacher. When he saw the determination, and respect that Savitri had, he officially accepted her as a disciple. Years later, Savitri became a stage actress. She has both talent and talent, so that makes her the favorite star of the locals. But even so, she still gets a little bit. So the Dari decided to sell the property they had to open his own theater. But it's ruined, because movies are becoming popular, so everyone paraded to see the movie in the theater. When the Dari knew that, he will push her to be a movie star. Both Savitri's mother's side objected because she was conservative, is that she thinks the girl's future lies with the husband to marry. But no matter how opposed, the Dari have not changed their intentions. He took her to town and took her to Cass. The first immigration in my life made her very amazing, even more at the sight of the magnificent greatness of the film industry. She was even more excited. But soon after, she was disappointed because she didn't pass anywhere. Even a small chapter she hasn't passed, which is not strange because the film industry is very competitive. It's not easy for a young woman to be a star. But soon after, Savitri happened to meet a man. His name is Gemini. As soon as he saw that Savitri had an aura soup, he went in to tell her that one day she will be famous all over town. By then, he asked to take a picture of her and said to wait because she's young now. There's no chapter that suits her yet. On the whole side, the Dari thought they had been deceived, so he gave up his intention and take her home, go to stage as usual. But then one day, Savitri has also been contacted to play the heroine, a duet with a famous hero she's crazy about, which is why she was approached, is because of the picture that Gemini took. On the first day of filming, the inexperienced Reverend then woke up the camera to speak an easy line. No, no, she missed it time and time again. The director finally couldn't stand it until he decided to change the heroine. This failure disappointed Chaudhary and embarrassed Savitri, but she was laughing at gossip. It kindled a commitment. When she found out there was care for the new actor, she decided to try Cass, which skill, talent, plus willpower also made her choose. Even it's just a small chapter, she was very, very proud. The more she saw herself on screen, the happier she was. The first performance, she was tapped to play the heroine. But the director of this movie, Dunn, was Savitri's first director. He rejected her as soon as he found the face. But she showed it to him that she doesn't wake on camera like she did now, which is when she doesn't wake the camera, her talents also shine. Her first movie was an unexpected success. To make her a hot heroine, many directors want her to be a heroine. They sent her a chapter to consider, but the person who made the choice was Chaudhary, which now has established itself as the personal manager of Savitri. And he chose her to play a Tamil movie, because it's more popular than Telugu language movies. But addicted to the problem, Savitri is not very good at Tamil, so that makes her perform poorly. Jane is the discipline that is the hero of this movie, so she took her to meet people in different places to get her used to Tamil, because learning from real life is better than learning from books. Soon after, she was able to perform brilliantly, and the director was very amazed that she learned the language so quickly. Savitri thanked Jane discipline, the whole photo story and language learning. By then, the two got to know, until they became closer. They are very happy to be together. But then one day, Jay Discipline then confessed the truth that he already had children and a wife. But he told Savitri that he married because of necessity. He doesn't love his current wife. The person he loves is only one person. But even if he said that, she was still very angry and sorry that he's always been hiding. She knows she loves Jay Discipline, but it was forbidden love. By then, she had struck away Jay Discipline, but he didn't quit, so that makes her even more distressed. Even one day, there was an accident on set. She rushed to see Jay Discipline. Fortunately, he's not injured. But that made her realize that she loves and cares about him very much. Without him, she can't stay on this planet. Jamie's side. When he saw that Savitri was very worried about him, he was sure that she loved him. So he showed sincerity by asking her to marry. Savitri made a very difficult decision because she had to choose between living painfully with immoral love, which is finally all she chooses is love. She agreed to marry Gemini and secretly dating. Although one heart feels guilty and afraid, but the other heart is very happy. But then one day, the Dari happened to find the letter that Gemini wrote to say love and date. Everyone is very sorry, knowing that Savitri is the third hand, especially Chaudhary. He was both disappointed and sad, and knowing that Savitri was secretly married, he was so angry that he could not forgive. He dragged her to a room to keep her from getting in the way when he was going to kill Jay Discipline. But she jumped away from home to warn against Jay Discipline was killed, which is when she gets to the house, she saw him with her family. The sight made her feel guilty and sorry, but now she can't back down. Since the first wife didn't crash anything, you will reign in love with Jay Discipline. She went to ask the director she respected, please talk, persuade the Dari to be weak. But no matter what you say, the Dari also do not accept this immoral love, and he never forgave that, in return for those who helped to become stars with this kind of disappointment. Soon after that, the two then gave a marriage press conference to make this love right and more accepted. But even so, Savitri is still sad. That disappointed the family. Jay Discipline then comforted her by saying she's not a mistress, so she doesn't have to feel guilty and not to live in hiding. He took her out to make people see that, but that was wrong. The fact that he took her out, it makes the image look worse. Jay Manai is seen as the husband who left his wife at home and came out to play with the mistress comfortably, and Savitri was seen as a wily woman that makes a man lose his head. When Jay Manai realized he was being looked at that way, he climbed up the roof of the tram, then shouted to love Savitri with sincerity before the public. His doing that changed his immoral love to become a romantic love. Staged back in the present, Vani was very impressed with Jane's discipline, that he dares to do that for a loved one. On the Anthony side, he was in love with Vani for a long time. When he found out she was impressed, he said he loved her in the same way as Jaya Discipline. Even it embarrassed her, but it worked out very well. Cut the scene back to the past. After Savitri got married, she was turned from a famous heroine, become an ordinary housewife who enjoys taking care of her husband. But many directors also regretted Savitri's talent. They want her back for the show. Enough directors she respected often persuaded her to get back into the industry. She was weak enough to play movies for. Even before she had damaging news, and even though she's long gone from the industry, but talent and talent brought her back to fame, and more famous than ever. And from that day on, every movie she starred in was highly successful. She's much more famous and wealthy until able to buy a grown mansion. But as everyone rejoiced at the housewarming party, the Dari didn't come back, since he hasn't forgiven her yet. Even the hillbilly girl became a famous star, but she never forgot, and not changed from the original. She's still a good-hearted young woman and generous. She divided a lot of money into people in need. She also helps take care of society, and a great role model for people. Soon after that, Savitri had his first child. Her life is now a very good and happy life. The acting work section, she's still in the industry. Her movie was every success because she plays great in every role, which also made her more famous until she became an early heroine. But her excessive loudness also disciplined the duo, become an unworthy hero. Although he understood, he was secretly deeply upset, and when that frustration accumulates more, it also became a discontent. He began not to welcome the success and don't agree with what Savitri did. Like you, would like to take one of her favorite movies to make a Tamil version. Gemini forbade her with an angry gesture. Not suitable as a husband that used to understand and be by your side, which is from that day, Savitri began to recognize the aloofness between her and Jane Discipline. So she decided to have another child for him, because she thinks this baby will help strengthen the relationship. But it certainly doesn't help, because the reason really of estrangement is the fame of Savitri. One day, a news story was written to Discipline that his movie is broken. Savitri is afraid of sorry husband, so she took the newspaper away, but he finally saw the news, and then he drank and acted in trouble. Revere doesn't say her husband acted stupid, and she comforted him that the ruined movie doesn't mean it's not famous anymore. But at that moment, fans came in for an autograph. She forgot to bring a pen, so she turned to borrow Discipline without knowing he was the hero, which is what underscores that he's a star who's already extinguished the light. So Savitri told him she was going to stop acting, but he told her to keep showing the movie, which is not because he regrets talent, but it's because he doesn't want to be a pathetic husband. One day, Savitri and Jane Discipline were invited to one of the important events, It's an Elephant Job, which Jane was so scared that he didn't dare to rise. But on the Savitri side, excited, glad, because she's an animal lover. When she got behind the elephant, Gemini needs to follow up, not to be gossiped as cowardly. But that upset him, so he spoke badly to her and got off the elephant. People are only interested in Savitri. Make Jane Discipline until unable to attend. Savitri tried to call her husband. The turmoil and the situation then, well, it makes her unable to do anything. Once the job is done, so she reconciled and apologized to Discipline. But he cut off sarcastically that he's like a rotten dog, not as honored as a great wife. When they saw that Savitri felt bad, he took the opportunity to force her to drink as a friend, to hopefully reduce the dignity and honor of legendary stardom, which she would do for her husband's comfort. Cut the scene back in the present. Wanine and the story of Savitri, so that upset her, that Jemmy is jealous of even his own lover, enough to see that women are better. Men often act idiots to block success, which is why she's in so much because of herself. It's a huge victim in male society that men can't accept seeing women succeed. Cut the scene back to the past. Savitri rejected the acting award as a prestigious grand prize, to not make Gemini feeling bad. Also, she eats until fat, to reduce popularity, and to make it no show. But even so, she was also the best choice of many directors, people, and even though she's fatter, but her movie was still a success, and there are still a lot of likes. One day, Savitri was persuaded to become director. Even she has no experience in this area, but she said yes. Maybe it's because she wants to reduce her fame by inflection to work behind the scenes. But then this movie has a problem. The investors refuse to lend because the filmmaking team has no guarantees, so that this movie doesn't fall in the middle of the way. So Savitri decided to sign the guarantee. But when it's time to pay off the debt, the filmmaking team has no pay. So investors came to pressure let her help with the debt. Revere, the kind one, decide to pay the debt first because she doesn't want investors to wait and don't want the filmmaking team to suffer. On the day of the movie's release, a lot of people came to rejoice and help support the movie that Savitri directed. Except only Jane Discipline. He didn't come to rejoice because he was addicted to filming in a city outside. But an acquaintance came and told Savitri that he had just seen Jane Discipline a while ago. The side is very curious. Why is Jamie Nye lying? When she tried to look at the old house, she found him there with a woman. She was shocked and devastated. Now a lot of the love she used to have has become anger and regret. No matter how he explains the excuses, she didn't listen to him. Because of his infidelity, make the love statement he says become a nasty lie. From that day on, Savitri was caught up in sorrow.
But then one day, someone sent a letter to tell that there is a picture that is thought to be Savitri's father. This good news brought her back as a person. She hurried to see the picture. But when I took the picture for my mother to confirm, she said it wasn't. Which disappointment this time is even more reinforcing, to ruin her life. She was both alcoholic and gained weight. There's no show. The work behind it was unsuccessful, plus people with money. I also took advantage of this. Come in, peel and cheat on her. On the side, Savitri knows, but she still let be fooled, because she deliberately ruined her life, as punishment itself. But this self-punishment, instead, it escalated and became more intense than expected. Because of who signed what, she signed without thinking. It got her dispossessed by the IRS, so she didn't have the money to pay the borrowed debt to make the movie. When creditors follow, you need to call for help from someone she used to cede money, but there was no one who helped her in trouble. She wasn't offended and didn't say, because when she gave, she never hoped for a return.
When no property takes on debt, the lawyer also advised her to pull the money for the education fund. But Reverend didn't do it because she didn't want to get the foundation in trouble. On the mother's side of Savitri, when she saw that her daughter had ruined her own life, you need to say warning, with the threat that if you still act like this, I'll send my grandchildren, go live with J Discipline to have a better future here. When Savitri heard that, he was angry, until she accidentally spoke badly to her mother, which was the speech that saddened her the most, because it was the last word to say to the mother she loved. And unfortunately, this regret of hers can't get her sanity back, and it also makes her dive into the darkness. She's been drinking all day and don't care about anything. She let the house be power cut and let the baby stay tough. When the daughter came to compete for the glass, she immediately slapped her daughter in the face, and when the daughter threw away the liquor bottle, she went to compete until it burned down the house. But while the fire was burning, she kept hugging liquor bottles like a madwoman. Fortunately, she and the baby survived. But if she keeps drinking, she will die because she suffers from diabetes. In the recovery episode, the Dari came to visit, which his forgiveness also made her very glad. It can also pull her sanity back. She promised she would change herself for her child's good future. Cut the scene back in the present after Suchira finds out that Vani is writing the story of a dear friend. She came to Vani because she wanted to read it. Vani told me the bad news that she couldn't continue writing. By before, she was caught by her father secretly associating with a young Christian, so my father forced her to marry with the young Hindu my father chose for ASAP. Meanwhile, Anthony then sent me an engagement invitation. Because of this, Vani decided to resign in order to marry as my father wanted. Cut the scene back to the past. Savitri decided to sell the mansion to put all the money into debt, which she later moved into a small house and then went back to acting, in which she plays a small role ignoring the prestige that used to reach the famous heroine. Meanwhile, she both had to lose weight and have to treat diabetes, ready to fight alcoholism, and the doctor was very amazed at her heart. The part on the side, she said fighting alcoholism, how tortured and difficult it is. And she studied, alcohol is considered a disease that needs treatment, so she wanted to build a rehab center to help people like her. That was her last dream. By then, she was patient, working without dignity, and living a simple life without being shy of anyone. But when she had a certain amount of property, you lost it. She took it to a known driver for a wedding for my daughter. Cut the scene back in the present. After Vans listened, the story of Savitri from Suva, she wanted people to know to the great giver, which after Suva went back, Vani listened to the audio tape that Savitri spoke on the radio. She said life was short. If you have true love, even it's only been a while, but it was considered lucky. So stand up to every obstacle for true love that is lucky in life, which is the words of Savitri, has awakened the courage for Vani. She went back to tell her father she was going to marry Anthony, and then she rushed to stop the engagement with a confession of love in front of everyone. On the Anthony side, he himself said he loved her, but the engagement party wouldn't have been cancelled, because this is my sister's engagement party, not his engagement party. Cut the scene back to the past. On May 11th, Savitri is going to shoot a movie, but before leaving, the IRS called, let her pay an additional fine. She thinks this is unfair, because the IRS has taken all the property, but still to pay the fine. She tried consulting a lawyer, but the lawyer couldn't help, so that stressed her out. In the episode, without someone by her side, she thought of Jane's discipline. She decided to call him, but in the end she didn't say, because the pain at that time was still embedded. And when she saw the liquor bottle, she wanted to rely on it.
She tried to fight herself hard, but in the end, a bruised and fragile mind, it also defeated her. Which is her return to booze, is why she's in a coma to date. Cut the scene to Vani. Even the chief skilled reporter couldn't find Shanka. But now Vani knows how great and commendable Savitri is. Which shortly thereafter, Savitri's story was published. Even now she hasn't recovered, she was back in people's hearts, both in famous heroine roles and the great heroine. Cut the scene to a young woman. She's the one who used to get a wedding gift from Savitri. After she read the story that Vani wrote, she also felt very guilty and sorry. That wasn't helping Savitri at the time. So she took the jewelry back today to replace a heartfelt apology. And Vani used that diamond to weave her last dream for Savitri by helping open a treatment center. Since she herself wanted to thank you for the story of Savitri that made her discover herself, which in addition to opening a treatment center, Vani also expressed gratitude by bringing what Savitri has been searching for her whole life. That is a picture of her father. Vani put the picture in her hand, and then she walked away. Suddenly, Savitri, who has been comatose for a year, clutches his father's picture. This movie, it's an autobiographical movie by Savitri, Ganesan. She was dubbed a great actor. She's an actress. That was the actress that was the most paid and popular during the year, see 1950-1960, which counts as an actress, the most successful and respectable of all times. If you like, press like. Want to see the next clip? Click subscribe. See you next clip. Hello there.